we were very much at the stage where we were trying to declare our ambition. I think it's easy now for those that intersect with Manchester City at this point to think that it's always been the way it is. I think as well as anybody, wasn't always that way. And I think the biggest challenge for us was to go from a sort of a culture of mediocrity to one of ambition. And I think when you're ambitious and you're bold and you're aggressive in who you want to be, like anything in life, you can be a little bit cheeky and you can have some fun with it.
The whole sort of Abu Dhabi philosophy was about being understated. So very different from Dubai, which is all about kind of pushing it in your face. The Abu Dhabi thing was much more about being kind of having your actions prove your strategy rather than shouting about it first. And so there was definitely some trepidation. So I when I originally got the idea through from the agency, I went to talk to Gary Cook and Vicky Kloss, who was the head of PR and media relations, because they were much more. They'd been closer, I guess, to the ownership, and so they had a much better understanding of the kind of sensitivities around that.
He said, "Listen, the lads in New York have got an idea," and I went, "Oh, right." And he said, "Look at this," and he sort of unraveled it, and I went, "Ooh." And he said, "Listen, it's one time, it's on the side of a wall, it will make a noise," and David actually said that. What do you think? And I said, I think we need to speak to Vicky Kloss.
You can't afford to lose the core, and you have to do things that are going to delight the core, and particularly if it's at the expense of the local neighbours. And I think Tevez was such a gift in that sense, and an opportunity. And Gary was a very brave client for doing those kind of things, because I think we knew it was going to kick off some controversy. And I remember reading Ferguson's quotes being like absolutely livid that City had put that poster up. But it was such a great insight, because I think it was such a truth to the city that City fans always felt, well, there's only one club in Manchester and there's another club down the road, but that isn't Manchester. So just because you got the name, it's not Manchester. And when Tevez was signed, it was like, well, we can welcome him to Manchester now. He's going to be actually in the city.
The tone of the advert has multiple layers of meaning, and the fans will get that very quickly, and so they will get that it's actually targeted at them. They will get that it's for them, and it's kind of we're sort of, it's a bit of a nod and a wink to go, you'll get this, you'll find this hilarious, and it's sort of a joke between us. And then to make it kind of even more effective, there's only one poster. That's the amazing thing. There was one poster. The whole thing cost less than £30,000, including media production. We actually found a cheaper photo than the one they originally proposed, and the site. But the site was very deliberately bought in Salford, right? So sorry, it's the first site in Manchester as you come from Salford into Manchester. It's the first poster site there is. So the positioning of it, welcome to Manchester, because now you're in Manchester. That's the kind of level one message. But obviously facing into Salford has a whole load of other messages about, there's only one club in Manchester and all of that sort of city lore around that. So it worked on so many different levels. And that was the genius of the creative idea, which we, I guess, amplified with the way we actually bought the media by putting it in that particular location.
We wanted to give everybody hope. And we wanted to allow ourselves to dream, because if you think about our messaging to the community, to the fans, to the world, it was City till I die and typical City. And they didn't really inspire ambition and success. And you could say City till I die to a 10-year-old who's going to be sported. He's only just arrived. He's only just got here. He's not thinking about the other part, the other end. So we felt that we needed to just be a little cheeky and test the water a little bit.
It was probably using social media for everything, and I think it would have ignited much quicker actually on social media. and probably died a lot quicker. Because I think, you know, we find in the marketing industry that things, you know, have a one-day shelf life. You produce something, it appears, sometimes it catches light in the public's imagination, other times it just dissolves and disappears. And I think what was interesting was it got quite a lot of conventional press coverage as well. And we've got like the press clippings of, like, you know, the Mail, the Telegraph, the Guardian, they all kind of went up and took a snap or licensed a photograph of the thing. And then I think, you know, fan forums had written about it. And then it was just odd because I think people then just started, you know, getting on Photoshop and doing their own little funny versions, some at City's expense and some at City's delight. And it was just good fun.
So what the United fans used to do was take socks filled with red paint and throw them at the poster because they couldn't reach it, they couldn't pull it off. So in the morning, every morning, there'd be a pile of socks, red socks at the bottom of the poster because they were trying to paint it red. And you know, this is pre-Instagram, you know, the visual kind of web thing. But people would go and take selfies. You know, there were lots and lots of people would be there every day taking pictures of themselves.
So Alex Ferguson was really angry. I mean, there was a really great angry quote I found, I think, somewhere about, it's typical of a small club like City to do this kind of thing. But we heard that actually they were actually quite sort of annoyed by it and affronted that City would do it. But I think, why not? I mean, it was just a bit of sort of chest out and posturing. If
you'd been his media advisor, you'd have told him to say nothing, right? Because all you're doing is adding fuel to the fire. All you're doing is giving it oxygen to last longer. If you'd kept quiet and said nothing, that was the noisy neighbours quote, wasn't it? And then he said something to Vicky Kloss after the match about, you know, no more bloody posters or something. And all of that got into the media. And of course, all that did was provide oxygen, made more people want to talk about it because we'd got to him, and we didn't mean to. That wasn't the intention. We weren't trying to rile him. We weren't trying to wind him up. But the fact that he let it get to him made it even more effective and even more impactful, and it just made more people talk about it for longer.
But it wasn't really aimed at anybody. It was to give Manchester City fans hope, tongue-in-cheek, wry smile. That's funny. That's cool. That's interesting. I actually think the fact that Sir Alex Ferguson, rose to the moment was a bit more telling than perhaps we thought. You know, most people would just ignore it, wouldn't they? Unless it really got to them.